My name is Carla. I'm the education director here at Moss, and I'm joined by Luke Smith, who is a current graduate student, and Gary Thompson, who is our leadership coordinator, and we're all here to answer your questions about the graduate program. And I'm going to get started just by giving an overview of the program itself and talk about the K-12 field school that we have that serves as a lab school for our graduate program. I'm going to talk about what is the grad curriculum like and what's the experience here. We're going to go into some of the costs and the ways that people have paid for it. And then we'll just wrap up with lots of time for your questions. Just looking over the list of who's registered, I think I've spoken with you or emailed with a lot of you before, so I know that you've done a lot of looking at the website, and a lot of this information that I'm going to be presenting may be a refresher for you, but nonetheless, hopefully a good overview just to hear from us. So here we are at the graduate residency in environmental education. Located at the McCall Outdoor Science School. McCall is a small mountain community in central Idaho. We're surrounded by lots of great wilderness area. Our field campus is at the base of Ponderosa State Park, which is one of the sort of premier state parks within Idaho. And our mission is to facilitate place-based collaborative science inquiry within the context of Idaho's land, water, and communities. And you can see in this picture, one of the great things that we get to do with kids is go canoeing and have really amazing experiences in this state park that's just surrounded by Payette Lake, which is a just phenomenal natural setting to teach in. The graduate residency leads to an MS in natural resources, and it can be completed in as little as 3 semesters plus a summer practicum experience. And the practicum experience for the graduate students is organized around the work that we do with our K-12 program. So Moss itself is, as this slide says, an outdoor school where students are stimulated by their surroundings, where they experience personal growth and creativity. So what we do in our K-12 programs, we get kids outside and get them excited about doing science in a very active way. We like to talk about science as a verb, and not necessarily something that's just consumed from a textbook. So we really practice that as much as we can in the presentation. In our program. I am being reminded to tell you that if you have questions during the presentation, you can raise your hand using the hand raising feature, or you can type them into the chat window, and Luke is monitoring what's going on. He's telling me all kinds of good things too. So our K-12 program, we get kids outside, they're actively doing science. And at the same time, we're integrating aspects of art and music and being creative, because we feel like those are all important parts of just creating a learning environment that's really engaging and gets students connected to the places where they live and gets them excited about learning more. And as I mentioned, this K-12 school serves as the practicum experience for the graduate program. So within the graduate program, we use an experiential learning cycle where graduate students get to teach in our programs, and then that goes on for a week, and then I just paused. Sorry, we're having a slow connection here. Okay. Good.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, we're back. So our graduate students spend a week teaching in our K-12 programs, and then they'll spend a week in classes. And what we do within our classes, we talk about the ecology of the area, or leadership for small groups, or we talk about place-based education and theories related to effective teaching. And students then can have an experience teaching the program, and then they can think about these experiences within the class setting so that our classes are really tied to the experience that our students have as field instructors in our program. And so we think of it as a theory and practice combination that that is a cycle that goes on for the throughout the fall semester and throughout the spring semester. We're continuously cycling between academic coursework and then practicum experience. So a lot of the field teaching is teaching the ecology lessons that have been explored in class and then translating those into teaching with kids. Doing leadership with small groups of students, so helping them become better communities of learners, and they're working with each other and practicing good communication and collaboration skills. And then spending a lot of time just helping kids explore and connect to the places where they live. As part of the program, you're matched with a teaching mentor. So as you're teaching, you would complete like reflective teaching journals and have field observations where you get lots of feedback about your teaching, and then help have conversations about how to incorporate learning from class into the work that you're doing as a field instructor. So all of this means that you're simultaneously a student and a teacher as well. Like I said, we really believe in this cycle of learning where experience is at the center of everything that we're doing, and then we're thinking about it. We talk a lot about trying to be intentional, or rather being intentional. So really understanding why you're doing what you're doing and how it's going to be effective. So again, here's our classes are very hands-on. Studying field ecology, you know, it's not just a classroom ecology class, it's actually getting out and doing ecological studies in the field. It's practicing leadership with your peers as well as developing that with students. And it's spending time learning about the place where we live so that you can help students get connected to it and then understand how to connect to their own places. And all of this done while living in beautiful McCall, Idaho. Oops. So to sum up just kind of the overview of the program, the coursework is in ecology, education, and leadership in the fall. And then in the spring, we do an integrated curriculum design class, a proposal development class, and a research methods class. Simultaneously, you're involved in 600 mentored teaching hours. And that leads to an MS in 3 semesters plus 1 summer. The 3rd semester is on the Moscow campus. So for a resident of Idaho, the full cost of the program is around $17,000, and that's for all 3 semesters. For a non-resident, it's $23,000. We provide a base of financial support, and so that the net cost is actually significantly less, around $5,500 for a resident, $11,450 for a non-resident. So the financial support looks like assistantships that are, every student that is accepted into the program would have an assistantship of $50 over the course of the first 2 semesters. For students who set up their practicum to work with us, there can be an additional summer stipend of $5,000. Students are also able to set up their own summer practicum experience, and that can be a paid job. It just has to show that it's connected to your professional development. And there might be additional requirements of reflective journaling or something, but it can be paid. So that's an additional way to earn some money to help offset the cost of the programs. We have work study opportunities up to about $1,000 per student. So that's a total of $11,550 possible financial support. So that leaves just a small amount that's the student is responsible for. In the past, we've also had students find teaching assistantships, research assistantships that they get connected to help offset that third semester. It's pretty common that folks that are coming out of our program are connected to teaching assistantships. And then, of course, because it's a degree-seeking program, you're able to take out loans if that's something that you choose to do. And so I'm just going to end with talking about like where do students go from here? What are the things that people do? So a lot of students from our program will end up in working for nonprofit type organizations. They might be involved in education formally in the classroom. They might work for another environmental nonprofit. Some of the skills that are developed here, just communicating science or working on a team, those are just transferable to lots of different working environments. Some students continue to take what they've learned within the graduate program and continue on and complete a different degree track. So some students have gone on to do like a PhD in ecology. Just having started with the Moss program, they kind of discovered their love of doing field ecology research and continued in that route. Some folks have come in with that interest and just wanted to use our program as a way to get better at communicating about science, and then they go right back into that more traditional master's or PhD in ecology route. A lot of our graduates go on to work for other outdoor ed programs. There are field instructor positions at a lot of places similar to ours that are seasonal jobs, but so folks will go and do those. And they also find that the skills that they develop here are applicable to, say, getting into more coordinator type positions within another program or working their way up into leadership. And we also have a fair number of graduates that have gone on to do the kind of education that we do here, but translate it into a formal classroom setting. So we have a lot of folks that have gone on to get a teaching degree, teaching certification after leaving our program. So who should apply? Well, lots of people: educators, outdoor leaders, field researchers, graduate students, natural resource professionals. What we're looking for is some combination of outdoor leadership experience or leadership experience, teaching experience, having worked with kids in some capacity, and some demonstrated ability to do science and having had a science undergrad or background in science. Not every candidate is going to have all three of those when they come in. In fact, most people will have one or two of those, and what they're looking to do through our program is build the second or third of those kind of three legs of the professional triangle. So we have a really nice mix every year of people that have different strengths. Some who are really strong teachers but have never learned about the ecology of the area. Some who have had a lot of outdoor leadership experience but have never thought formally about how to teach. So by accepting people into the program who have a diversity of backgrounds, we build a strong cohort that as a whole can learn a lot from each other. And we always say that the group that's here learns as much from each other as they do from any of the formal coursework at the classes. And Luke can maybe speak to that when we go to the question and answer session. This is our class, 2013. There's Luke right there. Okay, and so I think a lot of you have probably already checked out the website. We're at uidaho.edu/moss. That's my email address there. You can copy that down. This presentation is also going to be posted online, so you can review it and find that information there. Or you can go to our website and get my contact information. So, okay, with that, I think what I'd like to do is just open it up for questions. So you can do that in two ways. You can use the hand raising feature if you'd like, or you can type questions into the chat box and we will start fielding questions. Or not. Okay, so Emma got a question. Hi, Emma.
Hey, can you?
Yeah, I think we can hear you.
Can you hear me? I am an undergrad at University of Michigan. I'm a senior, and I'm basically trying to decide between coming to Moss right away after I graduate and going out and getting some outdoor education and I guess work. I'm wondering kind of what you think the pros and cons are of coming right after undergrad versus waiting a little bit and getting some more experience.
That's a fantastic question. I'd say we've had a mix. I'm actually going to put you back on mute. We're getting some feedback. So, okay, I'm going to answer your question, and then if you have follow-up, I will unmute you again. We've had a mix over the years, and I'd say there's a lot of value in coming straight away. Just I think sometimes taking time away, it's harder to get back into the academic kind of thinking. At the same time, there's definitely an advantage in getting experience before coming. I would say that one of the advantages of our program as a whole is that you can get experience while continuing in academics. So I think it's actually a great place to be if you're not quite sure, like, should I go out and be in the work world or should I continue in academics? Well, it's kind of a way of doing both. But, it's going to be, I think, a personal, it's kind of come down to, or do you feel like you're ready to keep going on in school? Gary or Luke, do you have anything to add to that? You can come into the camera.
I'll jump in because I think, Emma, I think I replied to your email a little while back, so that might be where this question's coming from a little bit, in that I did work at a couple of different outdoor science schools before deciding to come here because I wasn't sure that the world of academia was for me. And finding this program that, all right, I get to keep teaching, go through this experience that I've already had, but take formal courses as well was a great mix for me. And I could see how, for me personally, if I'd come to this right out of undergrad, I still just wouldn't have been sure what I wanted. And so I wouldn't have gotten out of it what I want specifically. So that's why it was nice for me to take some time to figure out what I wanted first, and then come back to this program, and it just ends up fitting really well for me. But for someone who knows what they want and that, yes, I do want this formal education and continue on in the world of academia, this is a great program to go with.
All right. Emma, did you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, so is it possible for me to accept it now for like defer my enrollment?
That's another great question. So it's not technically possible to defer. The the graduate admissions will keep your materials on file, but you have to reactivate your application. So we can't accept you and say that your acceptance stands for the following year, but you can keep your materials on file with the College of or with graduate admissions and then reactivate them. And then, if we've gone through the process with you, it's definitely easier the second time. We've done that with a number of students who have applied and then deferred, but deferring just meant not coming and then kind of reapplying.
Okay, thanks. That's my question.
Okay, thanks, Emma. Um, do we have other questions? Okay, I see some folks are typing questions. I'm currently a math teacher, and my goal for a grad degree is to make math come alive through outdoor ecology. Is this dream a possible? Is this a possible dream with Moss? Yeah, that's a fantastic question, Kate. Right? Um, yeah. So I mentioned like teaching science and art and music, and I didn't mention that math is integrated into everything that we do, and we're always looking to even be more explicit about how math is just a huge part of it's part of doing science. It's just part of life. We have some specific lessons that really highlight math in action, and students get kind of like confused and excited that they're doing math in a way that makes a lot of sense to them, and they're like, wait, I hate math, but this is really fun. so so I think it's possible. Luke, do you want to throw your 2 cents in?
Sure. What's really nice is that when you are a field instructor with your group, that you kind of get to do what you want. There might be a general frame or structure that you follow, but then you bring in your own personal flair. And if you're comfortable with math, and there are lots of ways to be able to bring math into your teaching, whereas a lot of people just are a little more intimidated by specifically teaching math with a lot of the lessons. But you're obviously really comfortable with it, and there are lots of ways you could definitely incorporate it into existing lessons that are here.
And I would say, so exactly what Luke is pointing to is probably the reason we need more math teachers to come to our program, so that, yeah, because we want to see more and more of that. Okay, so Jessica says, is it possible to get your teaching certification while completing the program? It is, and the College of Education is working with us on a formal pathway. We have an informal pathway right now. So the way that works is we have contacts in the College of Education who, if you let me know while you're applying that you're interested in a teaching certification, we'll get your transcripts to them so that they can review them and let you know like what deficiencies you might have that you would have to make up. And I say deficiencies, that's their language, but it just means like there's really specific courses you have to take to get a teaching certification. So they'll look through your transcript, see what can be used, and then give you a sense of how much longer it might take. At a minimum, it's an additional semester beyond a 3 so that you can get your student teaching done. It might be even, it probably would include a summer of coursework as well, but that can be done in the summer between the 2nd and 3rd semesters. It's easier to get a middle or high school certification in a specific subject area than it is to get one in elementary ed, just because the elementary certification just requires a lot of very specific coursework that it's hard to substitute for. But Jessica, if you want to type in, if that answers your question, let me know. And if you have a follow-up to that, it would be great. And in the meantime, I'm going to move on to Deborah Cook's question. How competitive is the program for those applying, and what's the acceptance rate? So the acceptance rate, I mean, obviously varies from year to year. It's as low as 25% and as high as 50%, I would say. That's kind of the fluctuation. The process is really a process of making sure that we have a mutually good fit. So we're interviewing folks and looking at their skill sets and making sure that they're academically ready for a program like ours and are going to bring something to the team. At the same time, you're going through this process of like, is this program going to serve my professional needs? And we find that by the time that we've done all of that, the process ends up being, what am I trying to say? We have a very highly qualified applicant pool usually, although maybe it's a smaller applicant pool. So maybe we'll have 50 applications for 18 spots. So the acceptance rate looks maybe higher, but those 50 applicants end up being self-selected out. So it's what am I trying to say? It's competitive, but it's not like unachievable, obviously. Let's see. Okay, so Jessica followed up with, would my student teaching be restricted only to Idaho? No, it would not. I believe it can be completed. Well, I guess actually that would be a question for the certification folks. I'm not sure if you want an Idaho certification, you might have to do it in Idaho, but I know Idaho has reciprocity with other states. So maybe follow up with me with an email and I can forward that to the folks that you would need to talk to. So I'm going to move on to Dave's question. So I'm wondering if any recent students have decided to add the thesis to their MS, and if so, how much more demanding was their experience? Then interested in moving toward a PhD program to teach in a university setting. I feel like the thesis is a good move. Your thoughts? Boy, that's the $1 million question. The traditional wisdom is that the thesis route, if you do want to stay in academics, is the way to go. That being said, I've also heard more frequently that a project route can be just as good for continuing on in a PhD program. It's one of those it depends kind of answers. I think we'd have to talk about what specific area you wanted to do. And Dave, if I remember correctly, maybe you can type in, or if you want to, let me see if I can get you. I've unmuted you now, Dave. So are you interested in a more like ecology-oriented PhD? Am I remembering that correctly? Or are you more interested in the social sciences?
Either.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So I suppose I have a general interest in both. Moving through my bachelor's degree, it had a focus on the conservation social sciences. So when I saw that that was an option, I gravitated towards it.
Mm-hmm.
However, just like you said in your presentation, hopefully the magic of these other avenues of the field would come alive with an experience at Moss. And so it's tough to answer that question because it seems to change given what journal article I end up reading. You know what I mean?
Right. So I would say, to answer your question, how much more demanding was their experience? My experience with that is that it's really dependent on the student. So students can make projects a really rigorous experience. And I would say more and more that's what we're looking for from students, that their project work is just as rigorous as a thesis. It's just a different type of work, so I think there's this kind of historical notion that projects are less than theses. And I would say that they're just different. Projects require a lot of organizational skills and being able to think through timelines and work with partners on developing a product that's going to be useful. But that's no less rigorous than coming up with a research question and doing data collection analysis. So I really find that that's dependent on the student. So if you're the kind of student who's going to be motivated to do a good thesis, you're going to be motivated to do a good project, and you're going to work just as hard at it. In all of our projects, we're really requiring more that students think, bring a scholarly lens to what they're doing. So it's not just doing more of what you would do in a job and calling it a project. It's really thinking, taking the time to be thoughtful and approach it from a scholarly standpoint, like developing some new product. So, and because of that, I think that makes it actually easier to connect it to a PhD program. It is more
Nice.
coursework. That's I think the bottom line is it's more coursework. Like especially if you're going to go on for a PhD, you would want to get just some foundational courses, but that's the biggest thing. Did you have
Sure.
a follow-up?
I guess my question would then be, and I'm assuming that I don't necessarily have to enter in the program having that question answered for myself. Then I can move into it having that ambiguity and then take it as it comes and figure out what works for me.
I think that's actually the approach that I would recommend, just having seen other students go through the process, because being here allows you to connect to faculty and get the lay of the land and figure out what you are interested in. So just as you've said.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. So following up on Deborah's question, what makes a strong application? Also a great question. So we're really looking for applicants to demonstrate that that they have some of those three qualities that we mentioned, like leadership, education background, or background in science and ecology, and to understand that they have these areas of strength, and also how the program here will help them build and become a more well-rounded professional. So to have a sense of how was this program connected to your professional development and growth. So there's two ways to do that effectively. So there's the camp of people who are like, you know what, this is going to be a year where I figure out what I want to do with my life, and I know that, and I'm going to be really explicit about that in my application, and we think that's great. Like this is going to be a transition from a former career, or this is going to be a first step out of college. I'm not sure what I want to do. Or we have the kind of people who are like, I have years of experience in this area, but I've never learned how to do it formally. And I'm going to use this as a way to get some formal reasoning for the stuff that I already know works. And we're like, great, this is going to be a good thing for you either way. Luke, actually, I feel like you can speak to maybe not the application process, but the ways that the program has, I think you can speak. Do you know what I'm asking you to do?
Sure, why not? I'll talk about something. So something that has been really nice for me is taking the courses and taking more of the educational theory courses, things like that, putting more formal thought to things that I've already done, that I've already experienced. Sure, I've worked with kids before, but I haven't thought through multiple intelligences or any theories or things like that before. So that was a great aspect of coming here to add in with my experience that I've already had.
Mm-hmm. I think the other part there, so demonstrating a willingness to learn is a really, as much as you can convey that in an application, I think is really important. But also a sense of yourself. What do you bring to the program that's going to benefit others? And so it's kind of that give and take. This is what I'm hoping to get out of the program. This is what I feel I bring to it. And finally, a capacity for doing scholarly work. So, it is an academic program. We're very connected to a very practical act of teaching, but in the end, it is a graduate program. So demonstrating that you have the aptitude for graduate study. So that means make sure your cover letter is well written, that your application materials are as well presented as they possibly could be, just to show yourself in the best academic light, I think. Oh no, I lost most of that. You cut out. Would you mind repeating? Oh goodness. Let's see. Emma, can you type in again if you're hearing us again now? Or anybody if they're hearing us? In the meantime, are there other questions? Okay. Oh, great. So we're hearing. Fine. What does a normal day look like while we teach at Moss? Luke, can I turn that over to you again?
Sure, why not? It is a very full day. Usually it's around 5th grade level that's here on campus. We'll start out at around 7:30 in the morning, have a group meeting, and meet with other field instructors to talk about your general plan for the day. And your general plan for the day will include where you're going to hike. We have Ponderosa State Park, which is very close by, and you can go on anywhere from a mile to 7-mile long hikes with the kids, depending on the group. So letting everyone know where you're going for the day. Also making sure that there's everything that the students will need. They need to refill water bottles, things like that. So we need to have someone place water out in the park ahead of time for us. So making sure that that's known to everybody else as well. Those are logistics that you go over during the morning meeting. Then you'll meet with the students, your field group for the day, and we have community time, which is kind of chores but more fun, where we get the kids to help us out around campus, recycling, things like that around campus. And also breakfast happens during that time. You don't have to eat the meals with the students, but the food is available for you if you want. And then you're with the kids from about 9 o'clock until 4 o'clock. So you are with students all day long out in the field. You bring lunches with you. Make sure you have plenty of layers. Make sure all the kids have everything that they need for the day. And you tend to focus on a certain topic: geology, freshwater ecology, something like that. You can mix things up. It doesn't only have to be geology. And you're with the kids all day long out in the field. You get to play some games, teach some lessons, and maybe your group just wants to hike most of the time, and you get to do a lot of hiking as well while you're out there. You get to make the lesson your own, and that's part of the training when you come here is how do I set up a day with the students. And then once you get back to campus at about 4 o'clock or so, the students are off in large group activities, and then every once in a while you might help out with evening programs too, 1 or 2 nights a week that you help out with evening programs that might be a silly campfire activity, or it might be something a little bit more focused on the scientific process. How do we come up with a good question and a hypothesis, an experimental design, things like that might also be a topic during the evening programs as well. So the teaching days are pretty full, but they are a lot of fun and very rewarding as well. I hope that answered the question. Typical teaching day with the students. Definitely type in a follow-up question if you have something else though.
So I see that Emma and Jesse have your hands raised. If you can just type into the chat window if you want us to unmute you so you can ask a question. In the meantime, I'm going to answer Deb Cook's question. Do the K-12 students come from all over? And they come from all over Idaho. So yes, but no. We serve kind of the corridor from as far north as Bonners Ferry in every once in a while, all the way down to Boise, and then over to Pocatello. So this is if you're familiar with the geography of Idaho. We do have a couple schools in Oregon that we're serving, and a couple schools from Washington. So it's mostly a regional program, although we are trying to build more of a wide audience. Jesse, let's see. Jesse, did you still have a question? Hi.
Yes. So I was wondering if you had any advice about reference letters. Traditionally, they tell you to get 2 reference letters from PhDs and then 1 from any field work or experience that you have. And with this program, it's kind of different with a lot more outdoor work. And I have some field experiences, so I was wondering, do you think I should do more field experience references, or should I stick with 2 PhDs and a field experience reference?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a nice mix. So somebody, if you're the PhD, can speak about your, how you are as a student and your if they've seen you. Yeah, I mean, I just think speaking to your like academic qualities, and then one that can speak to just your so by field experience, are you thinking like what kind of field experience?
So I've worked with a PhD candidate before,
Oh,
doing surveying stuff
I
in
gotcha.
Wyoming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think, so if you can just ask people to address, think about like the qualities that you're having to describe in the application, so like what we're using reference letters to do is understand who you are, from other people's point of view. So you're trying to make the case for us that like, hey, like I've got the capacity to learn. I want to teach and work with kids. And like I think I can be a good leader. So any way that those people can speak to any of those things. And then I think the mix that you're talking about with a couple of PhDs and a reference about your field work would be great, especially if they can speak to any of those other things. So
Okay.
does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Also, for me, I believe my references all were from work experience from various outdoor science schools. I was a couple of years out of college. I didn't have that academic connection as much anymore. So I had atypical reference letters, perhaps, but still, I got accepted. It's great.
Right. Yeah. There's no like magic mix, I think, but so let's see. Kate asked, how often do you work with students that are in high school? Most of our work with high school students is limited to our summer programs. So if that was something that you're interested in, we do pay people to be here over the summer. And we have some really fantastic summer programs working with Upward Bound, a STEM focused Upward Bound, and then a more just general college prep Upward Bound program. And then we run a couple programs that we've designed for anyone to enroll in. And they're more geared towards middle school students, early high school at the oldest. But so mostly in the summer, although occasionally we do work with high school students during the school year. Let's see. Dave says, during the presentation, you mentioned being able to do a teaching assistantship to help pay for the program. Would you mind speaking about that? As a current Knowles instructor, would a season with them work? So I would think that a season of instructing with Knowles could work as the summer practicum if you had a clear plan for how that was going to fit into your professional development and wasn't just doing the same work that you've done before, but calling it a practicum. So it is not hard to think about that. So it's kind of like, okay, I've spent 2 semesters thinking about leadership theory and ecology and teaching theory or curriculum design and field course planning. So I'm going to bring that to my role as a Knowles instructor, and I'm going to either help with some aspect of the course design or curriculum, or and in fact, I'm going to actually let Gary talk about this. You guys haven't seen Gary much, but Gary has led for Knowles and teaches in our program here and might be able to answer that better.
Sure. I think, who's this from?
Dave.
Dave. Hey, Dave. I think the summer program could work for you, but I think, again, like Carla said, you just want to do more than your regular instruction. So I think really any opportunity for course design, or if you're going to help even update the WIN or the River Instructor Notebook or some type of curriculum piece, I think that's where you find a real opportunity not only for Knowles, but also for your own kind of professional development. So yeah.
And
Also,
Luke.
from what I understand, with teaching assistantships tend to be more along the lines when we're in Moscow. So the third semester, or if you decide to continue on and stay in Moscow with teaching assistantships. Otherwise, we have other assistantships that we help out with here while we're on the McCall campus. And it's a wide variety of different assistantships available for that.
Yeah, so that's a good clarification. Great. Don't see any other hands raised. Oh. Well, if no one else has a question, let me see.
There's one. I've got a couple in email, Carla.
Okay.
One was what type of teaching opportunities does the MOS program open up? And I think we talked a little bit about what people do afterwards, but I just think there's been some really cool examples where our former grad students are working in private schools, they're working in public schools, they're working for other outdoor education centers. They've gone on to, even as a PhD student, perhaps they've got a teaching assistantship and are helping out with classes. So I think it can really go in a lot of different directions, depending on, again, that individual's focus. I think a lot of the people we've seen that have been really successful using the program come to MOS and kind of either already have or quickly develop a plan, like a professional plan on what they want to do with the program. So yeah, I think there's lots of opportunities.
Did you have another question there?
No, I think you answered them all.
All right.
I think everybody asked all the other questions I had.
Okay, well, we do have a couple more questions. Great. What's the 3-semester breakdown for classes? Good question. And then Emma, I see your question. We'll get to that next. So the 3-semester breakdown in the fall, you get credit for training, which is called field science teaching. And then the fall semester coursework that feels more like traditional classes are place-based education, place-based ecology, and leadership for the environmental educator. And then credit for teaching in the practicum. And I believe these are also listed on our website. So if you want to follow up by looking at the website after, just in case I missed something. So in the spring semester, the courses are Advanced Field Ecology Course Design, which is an integrated curriculum design course focused on communicating science and planning for our summer field courses. It's, proposal development, so focused on developing the Plan B proposal or project rather, and then research methods, and then also credit for teaching, so the practicum. And then the summer is a practicum, and then the fall it's theories of environmental behavior and natural resource policy, and then project credits. So by the fall, most folks have done most of the work for their projects and they're just wrapping up and writing. So it's really just 2 courses, but the courses are fairly intense and writing heavy. So that's the breakdown there. Dave, if you have a follow-up, feel free to type it in. And Emma says, will we be teaching mostly solo or with other MOS students? It depends on the year. Sometimes we have a lot of team teaching and sometimes we have 0 team teaching. And this year we've had very little team teaching. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So there are lots of opportunities to collaborate with other instructors, but for the most part, you are with your field group and then chaperones.
And field groups are pretty small, anywhere from 5 to 12 students. So if you are out in the field and you want to team teach with somebody else, you certainly have that opportunity. You can decide to do that on your own as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point. Okay, and if accepted, when do we start? The start date is August, sometime in August.
Nine.
Look it up.
Is that what it was this past year?
No,
It was August 12th this year, so it's probably August 11th next year. It's around about the second week of August. Somebody look that up.
I'm looking on
Gary's on it. He's looking. Let's see. Jesse, did you have another question?
it.
Hi. Yes. I was wondering, what does the program fees include? Like, what does that pay for?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm typing the start date. Send you all. The program starts August 11th. It is room and board, all of the instructional fees, so your credits and enrollment and everything. I should say for the first 2 semesters, the program fee, like for the first 2 semesters, is room and board, like travel while you're within the MOS program. Sometimes we go to like Moscow or something and we pay for that out of, a fund. It's all your credits. It does not include textbooks, although the textbook burden is fairly
Pretty
small. We try to do most of our readings through like journal articles or assigned things, not big textbooks. It's kind of like all inclusive depending on how much you need to live on. It does not include weekend trips to the restaurants, but it does include food for the weekend. What am I forgetting? This is also listed on the fees page. I should probably just pull that up on the website.
Oh, then I'll just check that out. I'm sorry that I asked a question I could just look up.
Oh, no worries. Sometimes it's just nice to get clarification. What does that actually mean?
Sorry, that was me. I don't know if you heard that or not. That was my dryer.
I'm going to pull this up on the website. So
An unexpected perk was that since room and board is included in the program fee, the kitchen manager does go shopping and take requests and will buy groceries for you, which is really nice.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's like it's living at large over there.
Oh
You
yeah.
guys have
big
your
time.
own.
looks like there is an early conversation. I mentioned service learning projects. This is something that can be executed in other locations besides Moscow. Yes. So, Deb, if I'm remembering correctly, you were talking about service learning as part of your master's project. Is that, let me see. Do you have your audio? Where are you?
Sorry?
Hold on. Oh. So, Deb Cook, I'm following up on your question here. Can you talk a little bit more about the service learning idea and when were you? I remember the conversation, but I don't remember the details.
Right. No, I was just asking about, instead of a thesis, you said, a project, and I had mentioned service learning project. I was just wondering if it was, if we were able to do that, in another place besides Moscow, because my thought was, that our town is probably inundated with grad students trying to finish projects, and, if I have a great idea, but the town is already saturated with that particular idea, can I take that to somewhere else that is really deficient in pretty much anything green? Would that be possible?
Sure. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, so that's fantastic.
Good.
That was my big question.
Good. So looking at the time, I'm gonna just try to quickly answer what time spans would we not be in classes or teaching. So I'm thinking that means when are the breaks? So pretty much middle of August through Thanksgiving is full on classes and teaching, pretty intense. Week off for Thanksgiving, then 2 weeks of winter training, then 3.5 weeks off in the break between the semesters. And then early January through spring break, which is mid-March, full on classes and teaching, a week off for spring break, and then mid-March to the end of May is again classes and teaching. And then at a smaller scale, classes and teaching happen Monday through Friday from roughly 8 to 5, depending on what you're doing, teaching or learning. So, and you do get weekends off, with the occasional exception. Like tomorrow, we're doing a community program that is a Saturday event, but I believe that's actually the first weekend you guys have had to officially work, right?
I think so.
Yeah. So we try to be respectful. We like to have weekends off as well. So good. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, and we promised an hour. We're getting to the end of that hour. So thank you so much for sitting in on the webinar. I hope it was helpful. We enjoyed hearing your questions, and I wish that I could see all of you. It's definitely a little bit strange to be staring at my computer and not getting to see all of your wonderful faces, but I hope that we will be able to talk face to face at some point in the somewhat near future. So any other parting words from Luke or Gary?
Nothing specific, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think thanks again for your time for participating in the webinar. And if you have any questions, just feel free to get in touch. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, actually, on that note, so I'm going to be out of the country for the next 3 weeks. So although my email was listed as the main contact, if you do need a quick answer to something,
You take my email.
Gary will be a great person to ask questions of as well. And then, well, I'll have all of this in my email response, but this is Gary's email. So if you do have questions, you can follow up with him. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Bye.